What's going on, my peoples? Kevin King Supreme in the building, back with another video from OK Beatz. And in this tutorial, we are going to be making a beat. And before we begin, I would love for you to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, share this video with anybody you know likes to make this type of content, and comment questions. Let me know what y'all think about these videos and all of that good stuff. Also check out our Beatz, our mixing and mastering services, graphic designs, and our brand new merchandise on okbeatz.com. That is okaybeatz.com, my peoples. Appreciate y'all. Now let's get right into it. I'll just enter this FL Studio DAW real quick. Over here, I put it on 148 BPM. I opened this synth called Sector Synth by Initial Audio, and I chose this sound from the sound bank that it comes with. And we're just gonna go with that, something simple, something that sounds really kind of exciting. And I also went ahead and premeditated a scale that we're gonna go with, and I think we're gonna run with a B scale. It's gonna go sound like this. All right, so let's go ahead and press record. All right, let's hear that real quick with the metronome. All right, so we can hear that it's a little tiny bit off beat. So I'm gonna click on that pattern. I'm going to highlight everything by hitting Command A and then Option Q, so we can quantize this. I'm gonna quantize the end time. And I'm gonna leave everything just how it is. I'll press accept and let's see what it sounds like. All right, so they didn't do a perfect job, so we're gonna go ahead and finish the job. Just nudge these over. Okay, so I like the little tweak right there, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue this pattern real quick. Sounding dope so far though. Let's hear it. There you go. Now that sounds right. Let me see if I can get a bass line on this real quick. Ooh, that sounds mean. Let me drag that all the way across. See what that sounds like. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a copy. Let's clone this on the channel rack, and then come over here and then go to the bass and draw one bass line all the way across. Let's hear that. Okay, maybe there could be a little change. Okay, you can already kind of hear how this is starting to turn out. So, whew, it just gets me excited. But that's the beginning of the melody. As you can hear, it sounds good because I'm picking good sounds. I always stress, pick good sounds from the very beginning. Let's get right back into it. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do real quick is I'm going to go ahead and send this sector synth into the mixer. by highlighting these two little boxes right here. Just drag across them, just drag through them, and holding Command and press L. Now that is going to send those sounds into the mixer right here. So what I'm going to do is both of these tracks on the mixer, I'm going to highlight them by dragging across them, holding Command, and then clicking on this little arrow right here on an open insert right next to it, on an open track right next to it, right click on that arrow and hit route to this track only. Then I'm going to name that track by holding shift and clicking on the little title area of that track. And I'm going to name this Melody. Okay, so that's the melody. And I'm also going to make it purple. Press enter. All right, so now I can control both of these tracks with just this track, with the fader on this, just this track. Let's check it out. You see, so now that I can control that, what I want to do to this melody as a whole is I want to add a plugin called halftime to it. So I'm going to add halftime to it. And this is what this sounds like, just right off the rip. Alright, so as you can hear, we're already getting that grungy feel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back on this wet and dry knob because I want to hear some of the actual melody too. But I want it mostly to have that real shadowy, grimy vibe. Because I feel like this is going to be like a grungy beat. So let's roll with it and see what we could get. Alright, so another thing that I'm going to add to this melody track is going to be something called Gross Beat by FL Studio. Now, Gross Beat is cool because you could design the sound as you want. You could add a bunch of little changes to it. Let's hear it. Okay, so I like this part right here, but I don't really like this part right here. So I'm going to erase that part and I'm just going to keep that part. Let's hear it. Okay, I like it. I guess I wanted to start doing that a little bit earlier. So I'm going to right click and make this little entrance over here real quick. Just so I can bring another instance of this right here. Let's hear it now. Okay, so this gross beat is sounding dope so far, sounding crazy. So I'm liking it. I'm gonna keep this, and I'm going to add a little compression to this. So CLA 2A stereo. We're gonna go with that real quick. Be generous with that compression right there. Let me go ahead and also take this first instance of the instrument and spread it out a little bit in the stereo field. Let's see how that sounds. Sounds badass so far. All right, so go back into this melody one more time and put a parametric EQ2 on it real quick, just to roll off the lows, because I know I'm gonna want a really crazy 808 on this, or I don't want the lows of the melody to get in the way of the 808. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll off these lows to about 200 hertz right now, and let me just listen to it just to make sure that I'm still getting that low grungy tonality from this melody. Let me hear it. Oh no, you see now it thins out a little bit too much, so I'm gonna bring back a little bit more of 100 hertz. Thinning out too much, I'm gonna pull back to about There you go. It's about 70, 75 hertz. Let me knock off some of these mids over here, so some mid highs, so that low grunge could really stand out in this melody. Okay, I kind of like, let me see, hold on. All right, so I'm basically looking for balance, my peoples. So I'm basically looking for balance with this EQ. The reason why I put that EQ on there is because we're looking for a balanced melody. We don't want it to eat too much of the lows space and take up the space of the 808s, but we also don't want it to sound too bright because this is a dark vibe that we're going for. You know what I'm saying? So we don't want it to sound all like melodic. You know what I mean? We just want it to be like dark but dope. You know what I mean? So anyways, I think we good with the melody for now. Let me go ahead and open this channel rack again and look for a good 808 that I want to go with. I'm gonna go with this Zay 808. Let's see what we could do to it. If anything, you know, I'll change it if I have to, but let's go with it for now. Open up this piano roll, and I already know that I'm going with the B scale. So let's start with one note on the B scale real quick and see what we could do. Okay. We got a little something going on there. Let me look for a good kick that's going to break through this 808. Look at that. First one sounds like a charm. Let's go ahead and copy this pattern and paste it right here. All right. So, you know, the trick to this part right here, finding a good 808 pattern, is just make sure that it sounds good in the beginning and then make sure that it sounds good at the end. So in this case, we have a 4-beat pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So the first two counts, 1 and 2, make sure that it sounds good by itself. And then the 3 and the 4 count, make sure that those sound good by itself. So when you put them together, it's going to sound dope. You know what I'm saying? But you could also choose to just take half of that pattern and keep repeating it until you want to start repeating the next pattern. So, you know, that's what I mean by that. So let's go with that. And then remember, the claps are usually just gonna go in the same place on the 3rd and 7th instance. Let's hear it. Finish putting that round across. Let's hear it. All right, so you see what I mean? Like the first half of the pattern sounds good. The last half of the pattern sounds good. Like I said, usually we're gonna have the same snares in the same place, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in this case, I'm just giving it a little bounce here. Alright, so now we're gonna go with the hi-hat real quick. Let's look for a good one. I like that. Let's go into the piano roll. Honestly, I don't want to go too crazy with these hi-hats, so I'm just gonna go ahead and right click on the hi-hats and say fill each 2 steps, then go into the piano roll and see what little rolls I can make. Alright, right here I found a little roll I might be able to make right here. And then I'm also going to keep it in the same key that we've been using. Let's change this magnet to 1/4 step so we can fit a little roll in here. So yeah, here we got, you know, just a couple little rolls. Okay, so now we got a basic pattern going on over here. Let me see if I can put this a counter snare. Let's see if I can get this counter snare popping, like a little clap. There you go. Now, I will be the first one to tell you, don't go crazy putting rolls all over the place. You know, when you know what you're doing, you do what you got to do. But as a beginner, don't just go putting all of these little rolls all over the place. Like sometimes it can be too much and it could turn into too much really quickly if you don't know what you're doing. I'm being very sporadic with it over here, as you can see, and it sounds good. But like I said, it could get to the point where I could sit there and just put rolls all over the place where it just sounds horrible and we ain't doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, now that we have all of our instruments, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these boxes that we just added instruments to and hit Command L. I went ahead and sent all of these instruments into the mixer window by hitting Command L. And I'm putting the 808 all the way in the beginning because I like the 808 usually to be my very first instrument. Then comes the kick, and then comes the snare, and then the counter snare, and then comes the hi-hats, and then comes the melodic instruments. So my 808, I like to color that red. My kick, I like to color that orange. And then my percussions, I like to color that yellow. And I also like to route that to its own track and name that track ROD for Rest of Drums. And also color that yellow. These are some industry secrets, my people. So I'll move the percussion group near the percussions, and then everything's color coordinated. Same thing with these melodic instruments. I'm going to color coordinate them with the group bus that it belongs to, which is like purplish or whatever. So now that we got that done, I'm going to go to this master track real quick and get rid of this fruity limiter. I'm going to replace it with this T-Rex classic clipper. All right. So I want to bring this up to about 0.3. And I want to bring this up to about 0.5. Because this is going to drive a little bit of saturation with the gain. And then this output is going to allow it to just peak at 0.3 decibels. So it's going to be clipping just a little bit. It's going to allow it to clip very slightly. But that clipping is the type of clipping that we want. It's going to give it an analog vibe. You know what I'm saying? And this slope over here, we're also going to move that up to about 5.5. So that's about it right there. So now let's hear how we're sounding so far. Turn off that metronome. You can already hear how this thing is sounding like hard. I'm going to go over here to this pattern and right click on this pattern right here and say split by channel. I'm going to highlight all of these channels and drag them over to track 5. And then I'm going to hit Command B to copy and paste them all the way across the canvas till I get to about 2 minutes. There's different ways of doing this, my peoples. Y'all do it the way that y'all like to do it best. Y'all can literally start the beat piece by piece. You know what I'm saying? I like to literally lay out the entire skeleton of the beat and then make my variations as I go. So I know that I got this part of the beat laid out, this whole beat laid out. I'm going to get rid of the 808, the kick, the clap, the hi-hat, and the counter snare for the first 2 bars. So that way we have an intro. This in song mode. Now let's hear it. Alright, so that's sounding dope. Now, once the intro goes away, I don't want the kick to come in just yet, but I do want the 808 and the snare to sound. So I want to take away the counter snare and the kick. I just want to hear the 808 and the clap. Let's hear it. All right, that sounds good. So at the very end of these 2 bars, I want the beat to like go away and just basically sounds louder when it comes back in. And it's also going to be a fuller sound when it comes back in because this is where the hook is going to be. So I'm just gonna mark this to be the end of the hook by letting this beat go out again after the hook finishes. After the hook, obviously this is gonna be a verse, right? So for this verse, same thing. I'm gonna take away the kick. I'm gonna take away, for the first 2 bars, I'm gonna take away the instance of the counter snare. I'm just gonna leave the 808, the snare, and the hi-hats. Then for the last 2 bars of that verse, I'm going to let the kick come in with the 808, but I'm going to take away the hi-hats here. So now you'll hear everything but the hi-hats. And then at the end of that verse, I'm going to let the beat drop out again, but you'll only hear the melody at the end of there. And then right before the hook comes back in, we're going to cut these drums over here and highlight them and then drag them to about right here. Hold shift to copy and paste them, and then highlight them again, the original ones, and pull that back just so we don't get like a little pause in between there. So let's hear what this sounds like real quick. All right, sounds about good so far. So after we get another 2 bars of that hook, the same thing here, we're going to mark the beginning of the next verse by letting this beat drop out at the end of that hook. And we're going to let it drop out a little bit more than we have been letting it drop out. You know what I mean? So just to switch it up a little bit. And then over here, we're going to bring in an instance of this hi-hat real quick. Let's open this up. And then just kind of make this 1/4 step right here so I can put in a very small instance of this hi-hat and just repeat it over and over again before this hook comes back in. Let's hear how this sounds like now. All right. All right. After that hook finishes and this verse comes back in, now we gotta choose how we're gonna let this first 2 bars for the second verse come in. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to take out the 808. I'm gonna chop it off out here, up here, let it come in at the end. And then for the second one, I'm gonna repeat. I'm gonna repeat this pattern and put this pattern back on cell, and then let it cut out right before the next section begins. Let it cut out a little bit. I'm also gonna cut out here the claps. Let's see what this sounds like real quick. This clap, I want it to be plain, so I'm just gonna play it plain all the way across. All right, so then for this last part of the verse, I'm gonna go ahead and do something a little bit crazy, and I'm gonna slice through the whole beat and let it like come in and out at certain moments, and then we're gonna hear what that sounds like. Let's see. Yeah, and then the rest of this right here could just ride out. You know what I mean? We could ride that out. By riding that out, what I mean is we could go to this mixer window over here, go to the master fader right here, right click on it and say create automation clip. And then what we're gonna do here with this automation clip is we can see it's lined up at the very end of the track. Right click on this little dot over here, right click on it and say copy value, and then just go a few lines in, right click anywhere, right click it again and say paste value. So that's gonna line it up with the rest of it. And then you could take that last one and just roll it down like that. And now you just made like a little fade out. Let's hear it. At this point, what I would do is I would get my watermark and just kind of sprinkle it throughout the beat as you see fit. Double click on it, send it to its own track, turn it down some. So now what I would do is I would get like a little riser real quick. Little riser. And just put it in there right before one of the drops. See that? That in its own track. So we got that little riser right there. These are little effects tricks that y'all could do. I like this tubular bell. That's like an impact for when the chorus begins. So I'll put that for the second chorus. Send that to its own track and turn it down slightly as well. And then at the end right there, we'll just put like another little riser towards the end there, right before the last set of hooks comes in, right here. That works. Send that to its own track as well. Turn it down slightly. So, you know, this just gives the track a little bit of life. You know, those little sounds that you put here and there, that just gives the track a little bit more life. So that when the person is listening to it back over and over again, you know, they hear these little sounds that they only hear once throughout the entire track. It makes them want to play the track over again just to listen to that one sound again. So you want to create moments like that in your beats. That's all I'm saying. The last thing that we could do here before we finalize this tutorial, we're just gonna listen to it and kind of just mix these faders a little bit, just, you know, just to kind of like make sure that we got a good basic beat going. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna totally mix this beat right now because, you know, that could take some time. I could be finished with the mix today and then listen to it in the car and realize that there's something else that the beat needed, and then I'll come back and do it. You know, with that said, you know, I want you guys to understand that happens a lot. You don't have to always, you know, declare that the beat is done. The beat is not always done just because you finished working on it that day. You can always go back to it. So with the same energy, if an artist listens to that beat the way it is and they want to hop on it the way it is, then, you know, then so be it. They'll hop on it the way it is. You know, you don't have to necessarily finish the beat before somebody jumps on it. Like, somebody could jump on a beat before you totally finish it. You know, ain't nothing wrong with that. But anyways, so yeah, let's mess with these faders a little. Play it from the beginning. Turn that melody down. I know these hi-hats gotta come in real loud, so I'm gonna turn those down. spread those out a little bit. Spread out this counter, clap. See, this kick is way too loud, so I'm turning it down. .808 as well. I want the 808 to end up peaking at around minus 10 dB. Alright, so I feel like that kick is like just really standing out. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a CLA 3A mono compressor. Alright, so I'm going to put a EQ, parametric EQ2 on this kick real quick, just to make sure that the frequencies that I want to stand out are standing out, which is usually going to be a little bit above 30 hertz. So let's hear it. And I'm going to bring down these boxy frequencies. Good for that. I don't want to do too much to it, so let's do it. Nothing is clipping above 0 dB over here in the meter. You know, you just want to make sure that nothing is clipping over 0 dB over here in this little meter right here. So, so now that that's that and everything sounds like it's in its place and nothing sounds, you know, like it's too loud or anything like that. Actually, maybe I'll go ahead and highlight all of these sounds that we put in towards the end and turn them down slightly, a little more. And then I'll put another EQ over here in the master bus, and this EQ is just going to carve out the extreme lows, anything below like 27 hertz and anything above like 18.5 kilohertz. We don't want, you know, none of those frequencies that we can't hear or feel to be taking up space in our mix. So let's hear that. All right, so I feel like we have a little bit too many frequencies that are present at the top end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another EQ to it, and I'm just going to tame those high frequencies here a little bit. So let's hear it. gonna put a compressor on the rest of these drums over here. The compressor of choice for those percussions are gonna be the CLA 76 stereo. A little bit faster compression. Just release really fast. And that's about it. Let's hear it. Just inching on this melody fader because it's a little bit too loud, but I don't want to like bring it down too low. So, you know, just being careful with it, just bringing it down a tad. Let me sweep the frequencies a little bit with this EQ that they have here on the mixer. Alright, so just went in there and cleaned up that melody a little bit with this EQ that they have over here on the mixer, which is a really cool go-to EQ right there, guys. Like, that EQ right there is slept on. Go to that EQ, my peoples, and use that EQ before you start slapping a bunch of plugins onto your stuff. Use that EQ to clean up your signal a little bit. Whenever you feel like you got way too much going on that one track, use this EQ to carve out any frequencies that are masking. I'll show you real quick. Each one of these tracks has one of these EQs. Look, every single one of these tracks has an EQ at the very bottom right here. The one that I'm using is the one for the melody. I'm controlling some of these frequencies in the melody right here. You know what I'm saying? This EQ right here is super powerful, guys. Like, it's so good and it's really slept on. Use it. That's all I'm saying. Ladies and gents, this beat sounds about right, sounds about ready, and there's not much left to do to it. Like I said, I would listen to it over and over again on a different source, and if I hear something that bothers me, then I'll just come back and attack it. Simple as that. You know what I mean? And then I'll shop this beat around until somebody likes it and wants to jump on it. If they want to do something to it to modify it, we'll go into the session and just easily make whatever changes we have to. And that's how we go about business, my OK beasts. So yeah, y'all already know, man. I hope y'all got some gems. We're going to call it a wrap. I hope y'all really got some value off of this tutorial. Thank y'all for listening and letting me join you in your journey to success, whatever that may be. I hope you reach it. Y'all already know. Kevin King Supreme in the building with OK Beatz. Peace.